If you had to pick just one skill that decides if a project is going to sink or swim, it's communication. So today we're going to break down the official playbook, the globally recognized PMBOK guide to show you how to get it right. Let's get into it. I want you to imagine this for a second. Your crew pours this massive concrete foundation for a brand new building. Everything looks perfect, except it's in the completely wrong spot. And why? Well, because somebody was working off an old blueprint. That right there is exactly what happens when a project goes silent. Boom. So that leads us to the one question that probably keeps every single project manager up at night. When projects just go completely off the rails, what's the real reason? You might be surprised. It's often not what you think. It's true. The vast majority of project failures, they're not about running out of money or missing a deadline. They happen because of a total breakdown in communication. These little misunderstandings that are left to just fester in the quiet until, bam, they become these huge project-killing problems. But, and this is the important part, here's the good news. The PMBOK guide, which is basically the gold standard for project management, boils this whole huge, complex topic down to just three. Three simple, really powerful processes. If you can master these 3 steps, you can build a project that is pretty much immune to the dangers of silence. So, how do we do it? How do we build that immunity? Well, step 1 is you have to stop guessing and start strategizing. Think about it. You would never, ever build a house without a blueprint, right? So you shouldn't be running a project without a communication plan either. Okay, so that's the official, kind of formal definition right out of the guide. But all it really means is figuring out a game plan before the project even kicks off. It's about sitting down and deliberately deciding who needs to know what, when they need to know it, and exactly how you're going to get that information to them. And you know what? This whole big planning process really just comes down to answering 4 simple questions. Who needs the info? What info do they need? How are they going to get it? And when are they going to get it? You just answer those 4 questions, and boom, you've created a solid, professional communication plan. It's that simple. But let's be real. A great plan is totally useless if it just sits in a binder on a shelf somewhere. And that brings us right to step 2, execution. This is where you actually bring that communication blueprint to life. In plain English, you just do what you said you were going to do. If your blueprint says weekly email updates, you send them. If it calls for daily stand-up meetings, you hold them. This is all about the disciplined, consistent act of just making communication happen. Now, I know a diagram like this can look a little complicated, but the idea is actually really simple. See over on the left, you've got your inputs, things like your communications plan. Those flow through the managed communications process right there in the middle. And what comes out on the right is the actual communication, the emails, the reports, the meetings, all the stuff that keeps the project's engine running. Which, of course, leads to a really important question. You're sending the emails, you're holding the meetings, but is anyone actually listening? Is the information being understood? Because, just pushing information out there into the world isn't enough. You have to know if it's actually landing. And that brings us to the final step in the loop. And honestly, this is the one that gets overlooked the most. We'll call it the mid-project checkup. This is where you make sure your communication strategy is actually healthy and doing its job. Think of this as your quality control. It's an absolutely essential feedback loop. Is the client getting what they need? Is the team on the same page? This is where you make those little adjustments before a small communication gap blows up into a major crisis. So this monitoring step means you're constantly asking these tough questions. Are people really engaged? Are they even opening the emails we send? Is there a lot of confusion in our meetings? If you start to sense a problem, that's your signal to go back and tweak that original blueprint. Okay, so let's bring this all home. Why does mastering this 3-step process matter so much? Because in project management, talk is definitely not cheap. In fact, it's invaluable. What you end up with is this simple, repeatable loop. It's the engine of great communication. First, you create the blueprint. Then, you execute that plan. And finally, you run the checkup to monitor your results. Plan, manage, monitor. It's a cycle that protects your project from start to finish. And look, this isn't just some abstract theory from a textbook. This is the real-world practical difference between finishing on time and on budget, and dealing with costly rework and really frustrated clients. It's what keeps your team aligned, your stakeholders confident, and your project on a clear path to success. At the end of the day, if you only remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. Real effective communication isn't just about talking at people or distributing information. It's about creating a shared, crystal clear understanding that powers your entire project, all the way to a successful conclusion.